welcome to another edition of Karjaka and Coffee. My name is Alexander Karjaka. Hello. This is episode 8. And today we've got the warning I may snap at any time. Or, I'm sorry, at any time I may snap. Either way, it's probably not true. From my dear friend Monica. Hi, Monica. Thank you so much. Today I wanted to talk about AI. I've been getting a lot of calls and talks, and even like at school and a variety of other places about like AI and the future of photography. And I'm not going to go into a huge diatribe about it, but I thought it just bears repeating that like technology develops, art forms develop. When photography first came on the scene and became more and more popular, we thought it was going to take over the landscape and that people would no longer be painters, right? No different than as, we moved from poetry to books, and then we moved from books to computers, and now we have the internet, and now we have all this and that. And still, those of us that, like me, still have a plethora of books in our library. We have wonderful cameras. We have more studying to do in our fields than we've ever done before. The idea that AI is going to replace people as photographers, sure, it's going to definitely take out some jobs. It's going to take out some opportunities that we would normally have, which is nature, which is how the world operates. But as a result, we can either complain and look at things as how things used to be and awful, like no different than when digital came on the scene and became more popular, and the film developing labs started closing more and more. At the turn of the 1900s, like there were photography studios and shops practically on every corner. Everybody opened up because it was more popular. And as time went on, those stores started to close because it wasn't profitable, or it was too much, or it was a bit of a fad, became too expensive, or new forms of media started coming about, or the home darkroom, no different than recording studios the 70s, 80s, and 90s, versus now we're doing more home recordings like this one, even to a certain extent, studio recordings, photo recordings, audio recordings. And it's given rise to more art being created, more opportunities for new and younger generations. But meanwhile, people like me, nearly 40, are looking at how things used to be versus how they are going to be, or how they could be in the future. I don't think it's a negative thing with AI. I think it's just different. And if you can look at things from a different perspective, as in how can I stay valuable or relevant, or how can if you're like, I look at myself as a photographer, but I try to make art with the photography or the music or whatever medium I'm working on, as opposed to saying like the utility of things. If you're a photographer for the sake of photography, and that's great, then you have your own challenges, no different than the artist that's an artist for the sake of being an artist. What the big takeaway with all this is that, yes, now with photography, now we're no longer doing decks. We're not doing lookbooks as much. We're not doing as much because we can have that generated with AI in a matter of seconds. So doing all that work and getting paid as a photographer is now gone. And that's just part of life. But that doesn't mean that your craft, who you are, what you have to say as an artist is gone either. It just means things look different. It might mean you have to change, you have to pivot. I think any art craft generation has to deal with that. A friend of mine said this the other day. It's like, we don't really look at poetry unless something traumatic is happening in our lives. And for me, I look at poetry as something that I read that informs my photography and my art. But for a lot of people, it's just like when certain circumstances happen, and at the end of the day, it becomes a matter of like, life taking a change where we have to kind of revisit, or we come back to, or explore new ways of being and operating and listening and reading. But that doesn't mean that poetry doesn't have its place, no different than photography or any other medium having its place. So that being said, yes, AI is definitely something to take a look at, but is it the death of your career? Certainly not. Is it the death of how you think of operate? Sure, it means you might have to change. And change can be a good thing. At least that's the way I'm looking at it. It's made me look at more about how I brand even Karjaka, right? Everything that we do here has to change, has to develop within time. And yes, it's painful, it's a struggle, but that's life. That's the birth of any new creation, is that struggle. And so even in AI, I don't think it's going to replace people, because at the end of the day, you are still the overwhelming factor in your art. Nobody can replace you as the artist. And I'm sticking to it. Anyway, that's a little short lecture on my thoughts on AI and where we're going as future arts and creators. This is episode 8 of Karjaka and Coffee, season 2. Don't forget to like us, follow us on all things social media, and don't forget, I love mugs. Anyway, I'm Alexander Karjaka. Happy snapping.